North Korea is the most closed country in the world and the most unpredictable. They live according to the Juche calendar, where the year of birth of Kim Il-sung is taken as the starting point. That's why this state is only a little over 100 years old now. In North Korea there are legalized permissible hairstyles, 18 for women and 10 for men. Here you can't buy Coca-Cola Chocopai or blue jeans, because these products are considered a symbol of imperialism. Let's see what lies behind the facade of a country with an ever-smiling leader. Let's start with the story 7 years ago. American student Otto Warmbier visited this country in 2015, where he received 15 years of hard labor for stealing a propaganda poster. Subsequently, under pressure from the world community, the North Korean authorities released him by drugging him, and after this recreational therapy the student fell into a coma and died in the USA. With the pitch of a brilliant comrade, a genius of genius, and simply the leader of the Korean Labor Party, it is believed that local residents do not need money, since the state fully meets their needs. The monthly wage in the public sector for ordinary workers is 1,500 to 2,500 won. At the government's exchange rate, that's $12.25. Farmers work another way and receive their wages in kind as a percentage of their harvest, and this meager income does not even cover their food needs. According to the United Nations, about 70% of the population is chronically food insecure. The average North Korean's diet consists of rice, wheat, and corn, and he gets a small piece of meat at best for holidays, the main ones being Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung's birthdays. Under these conditions, most North Koreans look for extra income, but only in their spare time. The country has a 100% employment rate. You can end up in labor camps for loafing, so people work all their lives, including in retirement. The retirement age is 60 years for women and 65 years for men. It is known that the pension in North Korea is about $30, almost 85% of the residents. The state takes care of pensioners and does not let them get bored. In villages, the elderly are assigned plots of land for sowing and giving part of their harvest to the state. In cities, they are assigned yards or public areas for voluntary forced service. While there is officially no private business, there are quite a few large private enterprises owned by those close to the highest levels of government, which are registered as public. Here workers have a completely different level of income, about $300 a month. They are mostly residents of Pyongyang and several large cities. At first glance, it may seem that there can be no inequality in North Korea, but in fact the gap in living standards between the top and the bottom is very high and continues to grow. Premium goods are sold in stores for the elite, for the top 1% in so-called Singapore stores. One of the signs of well-being in North Korea is the opportunity to go to a plastic surgeon. Among the most popular operations is blepharoplasty, but to change the shape of the eyelids to give the eyes a European look is not so easy. Plastic surgery in North Korea is prohibited. This is why the residents of North Korea are forced to go to underground surgery rooms. Education also belongs to the category of luxury. About 15% of all high school graduates, mostly from privileged families, go to higher education. It is difficult to enter a North Korean university. In connection with this blossomed lush flower industry, tutoring, a course of lessons from a good tutor costs from $10 to $30 a month, so that his income is quite high. It is interesting that a teacher in North Korea must be able to play the accordion. In a country where of 25 million people only 3 million have cell phones, the opportunity to have a good and hearty meal, to have a gym membership and trendy sweatpants, this is the highest privilege. In Pyongyang there are restaurants, sushi bars and coffee houses where you can order a beef steak for the money of the average North Korean, namely $50. Often in restaurants in the North Korean capital guests eat behind bamboo curtains, so that foreigners cannot see what is on the plates of the local rich. North Korea has one of the highest levels of corruption in the world. According to a report by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, based on 214 interviews with people who have fled the country, the right to life and freedom in North Korea depends primarily on the ability to bribe government officials. The pervasive corruption also affects the educational system. A bribe greatly increases the chances of entering a university, and some faculties, such as the only law school in the country at Kim Il-sung University, can only be entered without a bribe after serving in the army or by pulling strings. Threat of arrest, detention, and prosecution provides government officials with powerful ways to extort money from the public, said UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet in a statement. There is a 3-generation punishment in the country. This means that when a person is sent to prison, his whole family goes with him and the next 2 generations are born in prison. After Kim Jong-il's death, thousands of North Koreans were imprisoned because they mourned the loss of their leader. The number of prisoners ranges from 80,000 to 120,000. However, Kim Jong-un's regime is harsh not only on the citizens of the country, but also on members of his own family. In 2013, for example, his own aunt became a victim of repression. She and her husband were among the most influential people in the country when Kim Jong-un assumed power in North Korea. Jang Song-thaek, the aunt's husband, the first time he was considered the second man in the state, but 2 years later he was suddenly removed from all positions and detained during one of the meetings. Official statements said that he had confessed to attempting a coup d'état. He was executed immediately after being sentenced by a military court. The influential Jang Song-thaek was perceived by North Korea's new leader as a threat to his power. International economic sanctions were repeatedly imposed on North Korea. It is believed that North Korea generates significant revenues from the black market. For this purpose, Kim Jong-un's regime has a secret Office 39, a special structure that directly oversees illegal foreign trade. Among the illicit exports of North Korea is best known for drug trafficking. Drug production in North Korea was put on stream in the mid-70s. Mainly North Korea have specialized in the synthesis of heroin from poppy grain. But in 96 heavy rains have almost completely destroyed the poppy crop and North Korea had to look for new sources of income. After re-equipping the existing laboratories, the country began producing 10 to 15 tons of high-quality amphetamine and for export. The main partner of North Korea in the mid-90s became the Japanese Yakuza Mafia and representatives of the Chinese triads. A little later, North Korea began to look for new ways to enrich themselves. Amphetamines were left for domestic use. According to defectors, locals take them as a stimulant for fatigue, as a painkiller, and even in the form of cold pills. Smoking marijuana is also perfectly legal. Gradually, North Korea has turned to another type of illegal activity: laundering counterfeit money printed in its own territory. The local franklins turned out to be of such high quality that they were quickly dubbed super dollars. Examination revealed that the bills were printed on paper identical to that used by the U.S. Federal Reserve System. Such a super dollar was first spotted in 1989 in Manila. In 2016, a North Korean agent was detained in China with counterfeit $100 bills that he intended to spend on electronics and appliances. Today there are fewer and fewer counterfeit banknotes, and those that pop up cannot boast of high quality. The reason for that is the economic problems the republic has faced amid sanctions. In the early 1990s, Pyongyang started producing counterfeit cigarettes. Selling counterfeit cigarettes is a far less risky business than the drug trade. It is extremely profitable. It costs about $70,000 to produce one standard shipping container of cigarettes. The sale of such a container can bring in as much as $3 to $4 million. By the mid-2000s, there were about 12 such companies operating in North Korea. They made such well-known brands as Marlboro, Crown, and Dunhill, and even shipped them to the US from time to time. In 2006, for example, a shipment of such cigarettes worth $3.5 million was seized in Greece. The illicit cigarette market is now worth several $billion, and North Korea controls a significant portion of it. In mid-2000, Pyongyang began actively producing counterfeit drugs, clonazepam, phenethylline, and Viagra. In 2004, the authorities of the Arab Republic arrested the importation of 150,000 tablets of North Korean clonazepam, but the valiant North Koreans, led by the brilliant Kim Jong-un, opened a new line, began to produce Neo-Viagra brown pellets, claimed to be a means of traditional medicine. The makers of the real Viagra investigated the North Korean pill and stated that it could actually be effective because it contains about 50 milligrams of sildenafil, the main active ingredient in Viagra. Now Neo-Viagra is sold freely in North Korea and in the northeast of China. And, of course, the illegal arms trade. How could it not be? After all, among other things, North Korea has unprecedented experience in the maintenance, modernization and repair of Soviet and Chinese weapons. Many of them still serve today and are used by poor countries. The North Koreans cooperate with Somalia, Uganda, Iran, Syria, Mongolia, and several other states. Despite the wide geography of the trade, the revenues are difficult to estimate due to a lack of information. It is also difficult to estimate revenues due to the fact that some transactions are conducted under barter terms. For example, in 2013, Panamanian authorities detained a Cuban ship bound for North Korea. Border guards found weapons, Soviet equipment, and 2 MiG-21 fighter jets on board, which were covered with a cargo of 200,000 bags of sugar. The Cubans said they were taking it all to North Korea for repairs. As technology has evolved, North Korea has developed a full staff of its own hackers who help the authorities extract money from the country. For this purpose, North Korea set up special units of Bureau 121 and Office 91 in '98. It is assumed that today the cyber division consists of 2,000 to 6,000 hackers. World fame, North Korean hackers gained in 2014 after the attack on the Sony movie studio, whose comedy, Interview, provoked the wrath of Pyongyang. In 2016, they stole $81 million from the Bangladesh Central Bank, and also hacked the Yabazin exchange, where more than 4,000 bitcoins were withdrawn. North Korean hackers are no strangers to cryptocurrency mining. In 2017, attackers hijacked the server of a South Korean company and used the power for mining. And in early January 2018, it became known that they were spreading malware that hijacked other people's computers and forced them to mine cryptocurrency. However, the global network only serves the needs of the authorities and government organizations. North Koreans have no access to the internet. As of 2015, the number of active IP addresses with internet access did not exceed 1,500, but what does it matter? Because every North Korean household and business is equipped with a special radio, which is controlled by the government and cannot be turned off. North Korea is no stranger to the oldest business in the world, and actively engaged in human trafficking. In this case, there are two options: either in the role of the goods or women and girls, or sell North Korean workers, those work in the mining industry, in logging and construction. Slave from North Korea delivers more than 40 countries around the world, or according to various estimates, from 100,000 to 200,000 people. In this case, the lion's share of their wages workers donate for the benefit of the homeland and the leader. This activity brings in $1.3 billion to $2.3 billion annually. True, the North Korean authorities had to shut down even this kind of income after the United Nations sanctions obliged the member states to expel all North Korean workers. In general, no one can estimate even the legal income of this state. After all, the country's official economic statistics were classified back in the early 60s, but it is even harder to assess the illegal income. Well, we'll tell you about the relationship with South Korea another time. Set up notifications so you don't miss new episodes, and see you there, friends.